On this channel, we like to cover cleaner, greener, safer and smarter transportation. And as you know, we cover everything from electric bicycles through to electric cars, trucks and airplanes. But one of the things we haven't done enough of on this channel, and we're trying to change that in a COVID world or post-COVID world, depending on where you live, is to chat with people who are actually at the companies, who are actually making the vehicles, who are actually making the change and helping other people to make the change to go from internal combustion engine vehicles, the suck, squeeze, bang, blow, to electric zero emission vehicles, be they battery electric, be they hydrogen fuel cell electric, or some new novel type of vehicle. And there's going to be some video interviews coming over the next couple of months where we're going to talk to industry insiders. And to start that series, I'm really, really proud and really grateful that Peter Rawlinson has decided to sit down and talk with me. For those who don't know, Peter Rawlinson is currently the CEO of Lucid Motors, but he's got a long and distinguished career in the automotive industry. He also happens to have some connections to my home country of the UK. We're both now living in the United States, but Peter started his career at Jaguar Land Rover, then ended up at Lotus Cars, spent a lot of time at Tesla, very instrumental in the Model S, and now, of course, he is the CEO of Lucid. Peter, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you and yours are safe and well at this difficult time.
Thank you. Great to join you, Nikki.
So, Peter, you've got a long and distinguished career. You started with Jaguar Land Rover. You're an alma mater of Imperial College London, which, again, the connection, I went to school in London as well. So you started in the traditional automotive industry, and now you find yourself as the CEO of a car company that is accelerating the transition towards electric. So can you tell me a little bit about how your journey has influenced what you're doing today?
Gosh, well, it's really exciting to be here. It's great to talk to you. And I could not have imagined the path that life would have taken. I was just a guy who was interested in making things and inventing things, didn't know what path to take, really. And I got interested in cars at a young age, and I thought it would be a fun thing to do to design cars. Because engineers design cars, because even that is misunderstood. The design team, the designers, design the stylistic surfaces of the vehicles, but all the parts underneath those surfaces are actually designed by engineers. So I actually hate the term engineering development. I think that's a mission of defeat. I like to design things, get the design right, analyze it, do all the CAE work, and then minimize development time. So when I started out, it was just a fun thing to do. It was almost being paid for doing my hobby. And here I am now running a company which is, I believe, can help change the world for the benefit of all. Electric cars are here to stay. Their prowess has already been proven, largely thanks to Tesla. And our mission is to take it to the next level, to take the science to the next level, to take the technology to the next level. No one believes that's possible. Everyone thinks it's been done. Everyone thinks that it is already pre-commoditized, and it's not. The really exciting part is there's so much more, there's so much further we can take the EV for the benefit of all.
Now, your career has always been very heavily based in engineering, principal engineer at Jaguar, chief engineer at Lotus Cars, and obviously extremely very important role as vice president of vehicle engineering and chief engineer on Model S.
Yeah.
So you've always come at vehicles, whether they be internal combustion engine or electric, with the goal of having the engineering as the forefront. There is so much happening in the electric vehicle world at the moment. We've seen developments in the battery sector on an almost daily basis. There are teams of engineers, teams of academics simultaneously developing new technologies, whether it be, new cathodes or new anodes, new cell chemistries, all the way through to people who are working on new motor and inverter power electronics. We've seen the transition from 36 volt battery packs and powertrains, which is what, we had in the 70s, all the way through to today, where we're seeing 800 volts becoming very quickly the new normal for high performance vehicles, and even higher, as you just noted. So tell us a little bit about the underlying technology behind the Lucid Air, which is Lucid's first production vehicle.
Yeah. So, Lucid's a technology company as much as a car company, and all the key principle of the company, the key premise, is that all the technology is in-house. And if you look at the electric powertrain, there are 5 key elements to that. Of course, there's the battery, there's electric motor, the transmission, which is often ignored and underloved, the inverter, which is mostly misunderstood, and the software that kludges it all together. And all 5 elements are created 100% in-house at Lucid, and that's a core differentiator. And that's because the electric powertrain technology is absolutely a foundation stone for us as an EV company. And I actually believe we've seen the pop in Tesla's share price over the course of this year. And I think it's because prior to that, there was a growing recognition of Tesla's preeminence in electric powertrain technology. But I think there's been a recognition just how far ahead they are now from the rest of the pack. And this is a differentiator. You can't just buy an electric motor off the shelf from some company, usual suspects, buy an inverter here, buy a battery pack and spec it out in a bolt-on transmission and expect to have a state-of-the-art product. And, in a sense, there's a sense of deja vu here. Because 10 years ago, I was responsible for Tesla Model S, and I was working crazy hours, and we were just trying to create something which was very, very special in the car. And I think we succeeded. But the core premise of Tesla was all the tech was in-house. And the smart money was on other companies like Fisker. A lot of the smart money was on Fisker. And that didn't have the core technology in-house. It outsourced it. And now we see 10 years on, there's a plethora of startup companies, particularly in California, who don't have the technology in-house. They're buying it off the shelf or partly developing it. And I think what differentiates us is that it's fully in-house and it's truly state-of-the-art.
Now let's go sort of beyond from what you said there and look backwards a little bit. I'm a fan of Morris Minors. I've been a fan of Morris Minors since the very early days of my life. I loved the sound they made. I ended up owning a couple, one a standard one a hot rod that was modified with a K-series engine, which was a lot of fun. But when the Morris Minor was...
A lovely K-series engine, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when the Morris Minor was being originally designed, it was originally designed for a completely different engine to what ended up being used for the production. It's the reason why the Morris Minor engine bay is so massive, because Izagonis wanted to design a very different engine, wanted the Minor originally to be front-wheel drive. And Lord Nuffield said, no, you're going to use the engine that we've already got on the shelf. You're going to make that happen. And we've talked about this, obviously, in a way, in your last answer, in the way that traditional automakers are always looking for ways to utilize existing technology and utilize existing parts in new vehicles. It's one of the reasons why we have kind of this these shared parts between a lot of vehicles. And you can't do that as easily when you're completely starting afresh with a new drivetrain, a new way of getting power to the road. You mentioned the transmission, which is often overlooked in modern EVs. People say, well, electric vehicles don't have gearboxes. They don't have traditional gearboxes, but they still have the reduction gearboxes, the transmission.
Exactly.
So do you think it's possible for traditional automakers to actually start from a point of using what they already have? Or do you think they all have to just go back to first principles?
I think first principle approach is fundamental. I think that there are a few obstacles, philosophical obstacles that a traditional OE needs to overcome. First of all, your typical traditional OE is not convinced there's a profit margin to be had in an electric car. So you have this hurdle at CEO, CFO level that they don't want to do it. And they might begrudgingly do it to meet emission standards. Whereas this is a complete myth, and we can touch on this later. Anyone who says that electric car is not profitable, they haven't done their sums right. Because an electric car is more profitable than any gasoline car, and I know the numbers. And it suits Tesla perfectly to propagate this myth because it gives them more runway to race even further ahead. So electric cars are eminently profitable. And the more upmarket you make that electric car, the greater the profit margin. I have all the numbers. So let's dispel that myth. Then we have the implementation hurdle that a traditional OE might face. OEs are pretty good at development and iteration and fine-tuning and perfection. The next 3 Series BMW versus the last one. And typically the marketing department will say, well, we need an inch more leg room, we need a little bit more power, we need to reduce braking distance with a little bit more headroom. So it's an incremental methodology based upon previous experience. When I led Model S program, we took a completely different approach. It was a laws of physics ground up, a sort of fundamental philosophical view to create not just a new platform, but a new type of platform architecture that had never been conceived before. One which used the battery pack as a key element of the safety integrity of the vehicle. One which completed the passenger safety cell. So we had a safety cell for the people, but we had a safety cell for the cells. And this is a completely different paradigm. It's not a development of a previous platform architecture. It's a completely new architectural approach, and one in which the battery pack needs to be considered as very much part of the platform architecture. So then, which group would you give the battery pack within an existing car company? Who would be responsible? Which electrical systems? You give that to the electrical department? Well, no. A battery pack, here's another myth. It's a highly mechanical engineered system. The battery pack is 85% mechanical engineering and 15% electrical engineering, and quite a lot of software. The battery pack's primary functions now is an integral part of the platform architecture. So that belongs in the structural engineering team. It needs to contribute structurally, it needs to work thermally, and it needs to work package-wise. And the actual electrical wiring and architecture of that battery pack is fairly rudimentary. I'm a mechanical engineer. I learnt it quick. I'm a mechanical engineer who can learn that electric part quick. Others can do this too. So I think that's where a battery pack belongs now. It's in body structures groups. So we've got a whole bunch of philosophical, organizational, and reasons which stymie a traditional OE in this respect.
And it's really interesting that you I just want to unpack what you've just said there, because because I know that someone watching this will say, oh, but batteries are really important. The cell chemistry is really important. Yes, it is. But all of the development work for cell chemistries, a lot of the mechanical, the electrochemical engineering that goes on happens before the vehicle. You're talking about how do you safely package however many hundred or however many thousand cylindrical cells or prismatic cells or pouch cells, whatever you're picking, into a structure that sits in the vehicle that allows that pack to be mechanically safe, to transfer impact energy, to absorb energy or divert energy as required, to keep the cells from exploding or puncturing or suffering catastrophic damage which could lead to thermal runaway. How do you keep that pack cool? By either mechanically providing heat through a heat plate or providing some kind of thermal transfer capability. And that is what you're talking about there, correct?
Exactly. And this is very, very interesting. I'm glad you brought this up, because there are two distinct skill sets here. There's the discipline of creating a cell with the cell characteristics, which is vital. And that's largely due to the cell chemistry, but it's also due to the way the cell is internally engineered. And then there's also the discipline of battery pack engineering. And these are conveniently sort of morphed into two, but I see them as two separate skill sets, which equally important, which fuse together to create a state-of-the-art battery pack. And you may be aware that for the last 2 seasons, Lucid's battery has been powering all the cars in Formula E. We designed, developed, created that pack. We distribute it with our great UK distribution partner to the teams. But all 24 cars on the grid run a pack which is made here in Silicon Valley at Lucid's headquarters. And, that pack we developed for season 5. It's transformed the sport. No longer do we see the cars stopping half distance to because the battery power pack has run out. Our pack, the Lucid pack, which is branded Ativa under our technology wing moniker, lasts a full race distance because it's over double the energy capacity. But that breakthrough could have been achieved earlier because the cells we use, they're Murata cells, formerly Sony, they were commercially available a few years before. That breakthrough to double the energy capacity of that pack for Formula E, which has transformed the sport, is largely due to the pack integration engineering rather than the cell chemistry engineering.
Right. And how that works in the real world is you'll have your cell chemists say to your mechanical engineers, look, this battery needs to dissipate this much heat in terms of an actual measurable amount. You cannot go above this limit. You need to be able to dissipate this amount of heat. It needs to be able to withstand X, Y, or Z in terms of impact force. And it's a collaboration. It's a collaborative effort within the company to build that.
Totally is.
Let's move forwards. You mentioned Ativa. Obviously, that was the name that some people may recognize as being effectively the precursor to Lucid. They had that incredible, I think it was a Mercedes Sprinter, if I remember correctly, that had been fitted out with all of the technology in, and it was very fast.
It was.
But when you joined Lucid, it was a bit of a switch to focus on developing a car. You've said that you see Lucid as being an engineering company, a technology company first, rather than an automaker in a traditional sense. And company. I find that very interesting because I also view Lotus. I don't view Lotus per se as a traditional automaker. And back when you were still at Tesla, I remember visiting Tesla in 2012 and for the launch event for S. And I remember thinking at that point, I can imagine Tesla becoming the electric car equivalent of Lotus, taking other people's vehicles and making them better, taking other people's vehicles and doing things that maybe other companies cannot do because they understand the intrinsic engineering behind electric vehicles. Do you see Lucid sort of becoming, I don't like aligning one company to another or comparing another company to another. Do you see Lucid kind of occupying that role, the almost the electric car equivalent of Lotus?
I'd love to say yes, but we've got such a bright future doing our own cars. I think we've got such a vision for the next 10 years of products I want to do that I can't see us ever doing that. But I think we could do it in another way. I think that the technology that we've developed, our integrated powertrain technology, our electrical architecture, the whole connectivity, the whole play right around the car is ideally suited for transferring into a more affordable product. Now, that might be that we don't do that. Maybe other companies do that. Maybe it's through our technology. I can't see us being a consultancy company like Lotus, no. But I think that our technology, our world-class technology that we've developed for initially a relatively high-end product like Lucid Air is directly transferable because it's been designed for mass production. You'd think that the Lucid Air technology would be some sort of esoteric thing that was very difficult to manufacture, only suitable for a very expensive car. Not at all. We've gone to great lengths to ensure that this technology can find its way into more affordable products to benefit all mankind.
So let's talk about the actual engineering behind the Lucid Air. For those who don't know, obviously the Lucid Air was due to get its reveal earlier this year, but the world 2020 had other plans, and I think the way that 2020 is going right now, I can't possibly guess when things are going to go back to normal, whatever normal is. But you've got this very high-end luxury vehicle in the Lucid Air. It's not a vehicle that, you know, your average consumer is ever going to be able to afford brand new. And you're going effectively the same kind of model as many other car companies in the sector, which is kind of this trickle down view where you start with a very high-end premium flagship model and then you trickle down.
Yeah.
You've talked about how you believe this technology is mass producible, how you feel that this technology can be easily replicable in higher volumes, which of course will bring the economies of scale into play and thus reduce the cost. Can you tell us a little bit though about why Lucid just didn't come out with this high-end esoteric car that you're talking about? You've actually focused quite extensively on the engineering underneath.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why do we launch into this marketplace? I mean, first of all, the first product defines the brand. And in a sense, Tesla's been defined by Model S. Lexus was defined by LS400, technological tour de force. First Ferrari, V12. Ferrari and V12 are synonymous. So first product defines the brand. And I think that it's difficult to push a brand up market and relatively straightforward to move the other way. So I think that, and the other point here is that when we look at the price of batteries at the moment, that the margin on a more expensive product, the business model makes a lot more sense. The third point is less obvious. The more affordable a car becomes, you trade margin for volume. So you need to make lots of them.
Right.
Because of that, just the size of the factory, the level of industrialization can cost many times more. It costs a lot more to build a new Volkswagen Golf than a new Rolls Royce.
Right.
So we have to walk before we can run. You know, a little company like Lucid, even if we wanted to, we would have to raise billions to do a more affordable EV. Actually, the capex requirements for something that's relatively higher end are more modest. So this is a great starting point. We can create world's best technology and offer it in a package which no one has got. And let me explain that, because, you know, I mean, Tesla's done a great job. The cars are high tech, they're disruptive, they're beautifully engineered, all those things. Fantastic. But I've spoken to so many Mercedes-Benz owners, and they say, well, look, if you'd asked me 10 years ago, I would never have countenanced having an electric car. You ask me today, I'd love to have an electric car. Tesla's changed my view on that. But I'm not ditching my S-Class and I've looked inside a Tesla, I'm not getting that interior.
Right.
And
right.
There is no, therefore you come to the conclusion that Tesla's not really luxury. It's premium and it's a luxury price point. And I'm not being disparaging at all. I'm just being an observer of life. The fact is, the interior disappoints. No one is making a luxury EV. In the entire world, there isn't one. You can't buy one. And we're targeting, not Tesla, we're targeting S-Class Mercedes. But we're doing it from a West Coast, super cool California design sensibility. And that's what the brand is all about, fusing Silicon Valley technology and it's race-proven technology with our Formula E experience. When you buy a Lucid Air, you'll be buying race-proven battery technology. And the rest of the technology is at a similar level, super high-tech. And it's really with aspirational, Californian-influenced design flair. And I think that's a winning combination. That's what the brand is about, heart and mind, Silicon Valley tech, California cool.
So the EQS is going to be a really interesting cross shopper for you, right? I'll take that silence as a yes. All right, let's talk about the technology at the heart of Lucid and some of the announcements that you've made recently. The one that grabs my attention, really, aside from the battery pack and obviously its role in Formula E, is the motor.
Yeah.
Now, there are many different types of motors, and we've made some videos before on the channel discussing how motors work. But Lucid has come up with a very clever, I don't want to call it a hybrid because it's not. You've come up with a very clever design for the motor, but it's really not the motor so much as the power electronics. Am I right? Can you tell us a little bit about the motor?
It's the whole thing. You know, it's you've got to create a system where the whole is greater than the sum of the individual parts. And this is why we're doing everything in-house. I mean, you know, I don't even have specifically, I could say, a motor team. I've got a motor transmission team. I look at that as a single inertial system, a rotational system. Other companies have a motor group and a transmission group, and they bolt them together. Our motor and transmission is totally integral. It's a holistic rotational entity. And we've taken that approach to the whole system because I'm really obsessive about achieving great efficiency. So we've got an architecture which is over 900 volts. We've got our in-house power electronic inverter, which we've developed with silicon carbide MOSFETs, which is truly state-of-the-art. For a road car, it's smaller and more compact than anything that's on a racing car that I've seen. And when we look at the entire motor, transmission, differential, and inverter system collectively, we're getting very close to 17 kilowatts per litre. And I don't know of anyone else who's even close to that. And we've benchmarked against all the usual suspects. But we've done it not with some crazy expensive esoteric engineering, through design elegance and pushing the processes. We've developed some revolutionary processes in our motor, which no one else has got. We're the first to put in production, which is really going to transform things. And as a consequence, we've got a very, very efficient system. Now, I've been, I unashamedly have said that I'm not interested in motor torque. Motor torque is irrelevant. I'd like to take this opportunity to reiterate that. I know I get hammered in the comments section for this, but it is true. All I'm interested in is volumetric power density and efficiency. Because motor torque doesn't matter, because what really matters is the tractive force at the contact patch of the tyre. And that is a function of motor torque, reduction ratio, and the radius of the wheel. So if you had, for example, a Dyson car with huge wheels, you need a bigger reduction ratio. But really, when we quote motor torque, it's almost irrelevant.
Now, you have in the past talked about, I think 1,000 horsepower for the Lucid Air. Which is an insane amount of power. Yep. Obviously, getting that to the road, as you mentioned, is down to the tyres, it's down to the transmission as well. Yep. If you don't have a successful way of getting it to the ground, you're either going to break something or you're going to have a car that is completely undrivable.
That's what's going to happen.
Now, this motor that you've designed, it actually can behave like a synchronous motor, but it isn't. Is that correct?
Well, no, I've been slightly misquoted. What I've actually said is, look, we've got a permanent magnet motor. We've not got an induction motor. When we built their Alpha cars, and we did 235 miles in one of our Alpha prototypes a few years ago, and that was a genuine Lucid Air, did genuine 235 miles an hour in testing. That was running induction motors, asynchronous induction motors. Now, we've developed in-house a PM motor, permanent magnet motor, because it's more efficient, because we're chasing efficiency. But we've also made a breakthrough in the cogging torque, the resistance when you spin it, when you're not putting any power in it. So, because normally, if you've got two motors, a strategy can be, well, you'll have one PM motor, you'll have one induction motor, you can switch the induction motor off. You don't need to decouple it or declutch it because there's no cogging torque. We've got a PM motor which has got very, very small cogging torque, about a third of what you'd normally experience. Wow. So it's not a hybrid motor at all. It's a PM, but it's got some revolutionary features and it's super efficient.
And for those who aren't aware of what cogging is, the best way of describing it is it's effectively when the motor jumps from one position to the next position as it spins. Yeah. If you sit, I know my Bolt is capable of cogging. If you sit at traffic lights in a Bolt and you just very, very gently touch the accelerator, just enough, the car will just sit there and it almost shakes a little bit. Mm-hmm. As it sits there. And I've experienced cogging in other EVs as well. So maybe we'll do a video on that further down the line. So you've got this battery pack that is proven that you've engineered into the vehicle. So it's a structural component. You've got this permanent magnet motor that you've managed to tweak, both from a mechanical point of view and also from an electronic point of view, to get it to behave in a very unique way that is more energy efficient. Mm-hmm. And you've got this light and airy cabin. We've seen pictures of the prototypes. We haven't yet seen the actual Lucid Air. And unfortunately, we live in a news cycle. We live in a world where, and I don't think I'm unfair in saying this, if one company says they're going to do something, everyone cheers. If all the other companies say they're going to do something, they say they're lying, it's not true, there's no proof, show us the proof. So I know people will be asking, Peter, when are we expected to see the Lucid Air revealed? I don't want to tie down a particular date, but
we were going to
give us an IBAR.
We were going to take it to New York Auto Show on the 7th of April and reveal it there. But a pandemic intervened.
Yes.
So we're planning a live stream event late summer, and we're gonna unveil the car at the live stream event. I think that the days of motor show grand set piece reveals, I wouldn't say gone, but they're not gonna come back anytime soon. So I think live stream is the way to go, and I think we're just going to amaze people how cool it is at that event. And we're going to show a lot because our factory the actual building was completed just the end of May, and we're fitting the factory out right now, and we're going to be building cars in that factory this year.
Fantastic.
And that factory was just a patch of earth back in December when we held a grand building event there in December.
And Peter, we've seen the progress that you've been making on your facility. It's just outside Phoenix, isn't it?
Yes, it's between Phoenix and Tucson, Casa Grande. And team
Casa Grande, I know it well.
Yeah, and the Arizona team, very much part of Lucid, doing a great job.
Hopefully you haven't had many dust storms to deal with on that stretch of highway there. I know it's a bit notorious out there as you're heading towards the eastern side of Phoenix, and sort of then obviously you're into New Mexico and the dust storms. That spectacular place though, beautiful landscape. Yeah. Obviously the potential for plenty of solar panels, which I'm guessing that there's something that Lucid's looking to implement.
We will in due course. Yeah, absolutely. But we've got a 500-acre site, and we can make nearly 400,000 units a year there. We've got a 4-phase plan for the factory. We're currently implementing phase 1, and we can take that factory with phase 1 to 34,000 units a year. So we can build 34,000 units a year with what we've got which we will complete later this year. But then we'll bring in phase 2, 3, and 4, and ultimately we can go to about 370,000 units a year then.
Obviously, that's a very large production goal for a luxury market vehicle? Are you hoping that initial production will be just all of the Air, or are you hoping that other models will
Good
come in as
question.
well?
Oh, yes. I mean, clearly, you're not going to sell that many Lucid Airs. That's going to be more exclusive. So we're planning an SUV off the Air platform, and I want to get that in production as soon as we possibly can. I'd like to see that in the plant in 23. And then there's other stuff and other platforms we have planned. We have a roadmap for 10 years.
So let's talk. I'm not going to get you to divulge your entire roadmap. So let's talk about models and where we are in the automotive segment. Obviously, you and I are Brits by birth, but globally, the drive is towards ever larger vehicles, ever increasingly large footprints for vehicles. We have a company in New Jersey who is, allegedly bringing a new model to market that will make the Cadillac Escalade look like a Mini in terms of size. We are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We're seeing more and more companies come out with larger vehicles. Why did Lucid decide to go with a sedan, a vehicle design that is, for all but the luxury car market, seems to be going out of fashion?
Well, you've asked me two questions there. Let me address the size first. If in plan view, Lucid Air is smaller than Model S, and it's smaller than a Porsche Taycan. It's shorter than a Taycan, and it's narrower than a Taycan. And yet, inside has got more interior space than a long wheelbase S-Class Mercedes. And we've achieved this, I call the space concept. And you're a Brit, so you will understand Doctor Who's TARDIS. And the TARDIS is his spaceship, which of course is bigger on the inside than outside. And we have achieved a TARDIS with Lucid Air. We've achieved something which would not be possible with a gasoline powertrain. By miniaturizing the electrical components, we've been able to reimagine and redesign the whole architecture of the car. And designing the car is really like solving a 3D jigsaw puzzle with the added complication that you can actually adjust the shape and size of each of the bits that you're fitting together. So because we could have control of our own powertrain design, we were able to miniaturize it. And there's an old adage that to break the rules, first you have to master them. I think we mastered the electric powertrain. We've broken the rules of how we design the car. So we have a car which is much smaller on the outside and much bigger on the inside. And this is one of the beauties of electrification. You can have a larger car. That is the ultimate luxury. But you can have it more compact, more sporty, more agile, easier to park. I've driven Lucid Air around Manhattan. It's quite usable. So that's your first question. And then allow me to address your second question. There's this belief that the sedan is dead and everyone's going to SUVs, and we've bucked the trend, and thank heavens we have, because everyone else is going to do an SUV and we're going to be alone and capture the sedan market. I think sedan market lost momentum because sedans have been around, and we go back to this evolutionary feature of traditional OEs. The sedans kind of being finessed. What's its ultimate manifestation? Probably current S-Class. Whereas SUVs seem to be getting better and better and better. And certainly the SUV volumes are growing. But, if you look at the luxury sedan market worldwide, it's worth $100 billion. $100 billion a year. So that is a sizable market. If we just whittle away on a couple of percent of that, and we're not competing with Tesla, we're competing with Mercedes, Audi, BMW, Porsche, Jaguar, Lexus, all these grande marques. And that luxury space, that sedan space, is dominated by these ICE behemoths. And we're going to change all that with something more agile, more compact, a different proportion, a different design language, a shorter hood, a much more beguiling, luxurious cabin. And yet it's not some barge, because a lot of these cars are not great to drive. They're not fun sports cars. I'm a Lotus guy at heart. I like the agility of a lightweight, agile car. And you can with electrification, you can have your cake and eat it too. And the great paradox is Tesla never actually did that with Model S. It was style before it was engineered, and it was designed very much in a conservative manner. I can understand the feeling of the time. There was justification for it, but it was designed in the studio very much as if it could be a gasoline car. Not so with Lucid Air. It's been designed from the inside out, hand in glove, between the interior package, between the miniaturization of the powertrain and the design language of the exterior.
I cannot wait until somebody produces a hot hatch, and there are a couple of car companies coming to market now, a couple of cars coming to market now that I believe are worthy of the hot hatch.
Yeah.
My own Chevrolet Bolt EV is a car that I perceive as being a bit like the new hot hatch, but it's like the early days of the hot hatch. It's a little bit unruly at times, and it gives you all of the power when you want it. It doesn't nanny you. You know, you can wheel spin if you want. You can ask it to give you all of the power, and it will. And it sometimes does mean that sometimes it does weird things, like if you try and accelerate to overtake, it will torque steer, and it'll do other things. But I cannot wait to see the hot hatch come back with a new generation of electric vehicles. I know people watching this will have their own ideas on what that should look like. As a Brit, as a fellow Brit, I know that you will appreciate that. Let's turn our attention to the issues of developing an electric vehicle as an OEM. And this is something that I think, Peter, you'll be able to explain rather nicely. A lot of people look at Tesla and go, Tesla's done electric cars, made electric cars. Why isn't, name of company here, just stopping making internal combustion and switching to electric vehicle? And I think, Peter, that you can probably talk to that fairly effectively because of your background in traditional automakers. It's not just a case of stopping and switching, is it?
No, but I still think it comes back to this fundamental blockage that you've got at executive level, that auto industry executives don't believe that electric cars are profitable. They are. They're hugely profitable. We've done the numbers, and that's I'm not embarking on a project to lose money. We will make. Let me tell you, as a startup company like Lucid, there's no way we could countenance doing a gasoline car, because the fixed cost of for all the emissions, it would just, and amortizing that across the volume we're going to sell is just not going to work. We can only exist and thrive because of the gift of electrification, because of the potential of electrification, and because of that, we have an eminently profitable product with Lucid Air. And I mean, that's the first point. I think there's just not the will. I don't think there's the ambition. But I think also some of those OEs that are attempting to do this don't have the ambition to do it all in-house and take it to state of the art. There's not a recognition of just how far ahead of the pack Tesla currently is. Tesla is about 8 years ahead of everyone else, just on the electric powertrain side. That there is and let me tell you, it is not a case of the OEs catching Tesla. They're falling further behind. Right now, Tesla is powering ahead of them. It's as simple as that. And there's not a recognition of the value of that powertrain. Now, even Porsche with Taycan, this is unbelievable, but they don't actually make the electric powertrain in-house. They buy a motor from Magneti Marelli. They buy an inverter from Hitachi. They buy the battery pack in from Drexelmeier. Transmission, I think, ZF. I mean, even a Taycan is bought in bits. Tesla's the only one that makes it and designs it all in-house. And Lucid's going to take it to another level. And that is the
so excited
that is the difference. I tell you. And you know, I think you have to take things back to first principles and do science engineering. And you know what I've done at Lucid is I've managed to convince brilliant people to come and join. A lot of my old Model S team have come across. A lot of the brain trust from Model S is at Lucid. And I'm surrounded by the most brilliant team of engineers and scientists. And all I can do is act as a catalyst. I'm kind of like the conductor of the orchestra. I've got brilliant musicians, and I can hardly play anything these days, but I hopefully can conduct and catalyze and hopefully inspire a little bit, and you know, empower those brilliant people with the state of the art computers. They can have anything they want. You know, in the SAS they can choose their weapons, and it's the same at Lucid. We're special forces. Everyone can choose what computer, what screen they want. They can have supercomputer power at their disposal, and I really get them to sit together and reach for the stars, but to do so in a pragmatic manner, and that's what we're about. And because ultimately we have to execute, and we're going to get Lucid Air out in production early next year. And you know, since we received our funding, I announced we had over $1 billion from the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia in fall of 2018. We haven't actually slipped a day on our march to production before the pandemic. So that pandemic has set us back a little bit, but we're minimizing the impact of it. As a company, we've not put anyone on furlough. We've not given anyone a pay cut, except for me and a few poor executives, but we did that willingly. We've not laid anyone off. We've held the entire team together. We've taken great care of our people because the people make the company. And we forged ahead working remotely. We distributed computers so everyone could work in shelter in place. We've abided and worked rigorously to the guidelines of both the state and the county, Alameda County. We stood shoulder by shoulder with Alameda County, and we've taken all relevant precautions and then erred on the side of caution. And I think that our team recognizes that, and we will get rewarded by creating an even better car.
Let's round things up a little bit. And this is a question I'm going to warn you is going to be a little tough. We've had lots of people obviously lose their jobs lately due to COVID. Yeah. We've got everything going on at the moment with the protests across America. Obviously, the whole state of America politically at the moment is in a very difficult position. But going back to Lucid's funding, lots of people have criticized Lucid for being funded by the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund. Can you talk to us about, you know, that journey, that funding, and you know, essentially Lucid is being built by the money that has come from the fossil fuel industry to transition away from fossil fuels. So can you talk to that? And can you also talk to where Lucid sits in a world where we've got, you know, Black Lives Matter protests because of continuing, ongoing racial inequalities. We've got people losing their jobs, and we've also got coronavirus.
Yeah, I mean, we're witnessing a great tragedy and an outrage, justifiable outrage through social injustice here. And we're very, very cognizant and empathetic to all that. But, you know, I'd like to think that what we're doing through our actions, not words, is improving the world, improving the planet. Because we cannot go on, the world cannot go on burning fossil fuels the way it's doing. And we've got to do something about this. And what we're doing is not just creating a super luxury car, we're creating a technology revolution that can cascade down to more affordable products, which can change the way mankind mobilizes itself. And, you know, having a greener environment with fresher air benefits all. And, you know, fresh air does not discriminate between creed and colour.
To push back on those people who criticised Lucid for taking money from PIF, do you have anything to say to that?
I think that I'd like to believe Lucid is part of the solution, not the problem. I think that we can help the planet. We can we can do something inherently good. And I think we can actually do something good for Saudi Arabia. We can help their economy and their society through our technology, and doing something then the kingdom using our technology would really be beneficial for them, both in terms of their diversity of economy, their dependence, weaning them off the dependence of fossil fuels, which is good for everyone, and for their society as well. And I see Lucid and what we're doing as part of the solution and as a force for good.
So if I can paraphrase you, Peter, you're hoping that effectively the both the environmental and the social benefits of being a very open, forward-thinking company that supports all people
Absolutely.
Is something that will rub off also on Saudi Arabia.
Absolutely. And if you look at our approach at Lucid as a company, the company is only as good as the brilliance of the people that it recruits. And we've recruited all creeds and all colours. And I invite you to come around our offices and you will see all nations, all creeds and all colours working harmoniously together at Lucid. There is no discrimination at our company. And again, I say our actions speak louder than words.
Peter, it has been an absolute pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much for taking time out today to discuss with me. And I hope that Lucid continues along its very enjoyable path towards a future where we are all cleaner, greener, safer and smarter. We haven't touched on the autonomous vehicle elements of your vehicles. It goes as read that Lucid vehicles are also embracing autonomous vehicle technology. We haven't discussed the charging networks. So I feel that maybe we could even keep talking about this for some time to come. Do you have anything that you want to throw in that we haven't discussed yet?
Well, I mean, charging network, we've got two-way charging, but we've got boost charging. So by going to 900 volts, we're not isolating ourselves. We can plug into a 400 volt charger. We've got onboard boost charging. No one else has got that. We've got two-way charging. We can go car to grid and all the opportunities that enables. We've got the most connected car. We haven't even touched on that. With amazing UX and UI, you're going to be absolutely wowed by our user interface. It is state of the art. We haven't even spoke. We've talked about the underlying technology. We've got an Ethernet ring, low voltage architecture, which is designed with redundancy, super connectivity, massive onboard processing. All these software features, we're going to have over-the-air updates. We're a software tech company as much as a hardware company. I mean, there's so much we haven't scratched the surface, Nikki.
I know. We're coming up to the end of our hour, and I don't want to take too much time from you. Peter, it has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you again for joining me. You are still accepting reservations for the Lucid Air, and people could go, obviously, to the Lucid Air website.
They're being reserved very rapidly, so please make your reservations through the website. It's $1,000 for a reservation.
Excellent. And then hopefully we'll get to see the production version of the car later on this year. I'm assuming that we'll soon start seeing bodies in white once you've completely fitted out the facility in Arizona. And then hopefully we'll start seeing Lucid Airs on the street. Thanks as well to people who are watching at home. As usual, if you'd like to support us, you'd like us to make more videos like this, please do like, comment and subscribe. And you can support us using the links in the description below. Thanks to the folks scrolling by on my right. They are our charged up patrons. I'd also like to thank Jeffrey Songster, John Lyons and Regine Fellows, who are our self-driving patrons. And thanks to our Starman patrons, Marcel Ward, Reggie Watts, JP Fagerback and Sean Udaya. If you're looking for something else to watch from this channel, we've got some more videos coming in the next couple of months. Then Google thinks you might enjoy this one or one that we've already made. Google makes up the decision, so I don't get to pick what you see next, but make sure you watch it. And I will be back soon with more content for you all to enjoy. Until next time, wash your hands, stay safe and work to become a better, kinder person, strive for equality and treat others like you'd be treated yourself. That's it. Keep evolving.